6 months, Amara. Only 6 months left until you turn 20, Mama Folik whispered, her weathered hands trembling as she counted on her fingers while watching her daughter weave palm fronds by the evening fire. Amara's hands froze on the loom, golden thread slipping through her fingers like sand in an hourglass. The cowrie shells adorning her long braids caught the firelight, creating dancing shadows on her beautiful face. Mama, I'm scared. Don't be frightened, my precious daughter. Mama Folak rushed to embrace her child, though her own body shook with the weight of ancient dread. They both knew what those 6 months meant. If Amara didn't marry before her 20th birthday, the ancient curse would turn her to stone at dawn, just like the 7 women in their bloodline who had come before. In the village of Sunshine Village, known in the old tongue as Mole, the place of light, where golden acacia trees swayed in warm breezes and red earth paths wound between family compounds like rivers of life. The curse of Amara's family had become both blessing and burden. For generations, the women of their lineage had been renowned for their extraordinary beauty and the tragic fate that shadowed them. But this evening, as cooking fires began to flicker across the village and the first drums of night called to the ancestors, Amara felt the weight of time pressing down upon her like the heavy rains of the wet season. Amara was considered the most beautiful young woman in 3 neighboring villages. At 19 years and 6 months old, she possessed the kind of beauty that made poets weep and warriors forget their battles. Her skin glowed like polished bronze kissed by sunlight. Her large eyes sparkled with intelligence and kindness, and when she smiled, it was said that flowers bloomed more brightly and birds sang sweeter songs. She lived with her parents, Baba Olu and Mama Folake, in a modest but well-kept compound in the heart of Sunshine Village. Her father was a respected palm wine tapper whose brew was sought after for ceremonies and celebrations. Her mother wove the finest baskets in the region, their geometric patterns telling stories of their Yoruba ancestors. The compound consisted of 3 small houses built around a central courtyard, where a magnificent baobab tree provided shade. The main house, where Amara lived with her parents, had walls made of red clay bricks and a roof thatched with palm fronds. Each morning, Amara would wake before dawn to help her mother prepare breakfast. Usually yam porridge with palm oil and pepper, served with fresh coconut water. She would then tend to their small garden of vegetables behind the compound, where tomatoes, okra, and peppers grew in neat rows. But it was at the village well where Amara truly shone. Each day, she would carry her large clay pot, balanced gracefully on her head, walking the red earth path with such elegance that people would stop their work just to watch her pass. The well was the social center of village life, where women gathered to collect water, share news, and arrange marriages for their children. "Look how she walks," old Mama Sad would say to the other women, "like a queen among us common folk." "Too beautiful for her own good," another would murmur. "Beauty like that always comes with a price." They spoke more truth than they knew. That evening, as the family sat around their cooking fire sharing the day's events, Baba Olu looked at his daughter with eyes full of love and worry. He was a tall man with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of years of honest work. His hair was beginning to show silver at the temples, and deep lines around his eyes told of countless hours spent squinting up at palm trees under the African sun. "Amara, my daughter," he began, his voice heavy with the weight of generations. "Tomorrow, we must begin the formal search for your husband." Amara set down her bowl of pepper soup, her appetite suddenly gone. "Papa, I know about the curse. I've known since I was a child, but I had hoped. I had dreamed that perhaps love would find me naturally, without this terrible pressure of time." Mama Folake reached across to squeeze her daughter's hand. "Tell me again, Mama, about our ancestor Adunni. I need to understand why this burden falls on us." Her mother sighed deeply, her eyes growing distant as she reached back through the generations of their family's oral history. "Your great-great-great-grandmother Adunni was the most beautiful woman of her time, just as you are now. She lived in the ancient kingdom of Oyo, when our people were powerful and proud." The firelight flickered across Mama Folik's face as she continued the familiar tale. Adunni was so beautiful that kings from distant lands sent emissaries with marriage proposals. Traders crossed deserts and rivers just to catch a glimpse of her face. But Adunni was proud, too proud. She believed that no man was worthy of her beauty. Baba Olu picked up the story, his deep voice carrying the weight of ancestral memory. She rejected proposal after proposal. Kind men, wealthy men, brave men, wise men. None were good enough for beautiful Adunni. She would mock their gifts and laugh at their attempts to win her heart. But the ancestors were watching. Mama Folak continued. One day, an old woman came to Adunni's compound, begging for food and shelter. The woman was bent with age, her clothes were ragged, and she smelled of long travel and poverty. Adunni was so disgusted by the woman's appearance that she not only refused help, but had her servants chase the old woman away with sticks. Amara had heard the story many times, but tonight it felt different, more urgent. The old woman was a spirit in disguise. Yes, my daughter. She was one of the ancient Orisha, testing the kindness in Adunni's heart. When she found only vanity and cruelty, her judgment was swift and terrible. Baba Olu's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The spirit's curse was specific and cruel. Since you believe your beauty makes you too good for any mortal man, and since you have no compassion for those less fortunate, let beauty become a burden to your bloodline. Every woman born to your family line will be extraordinarily beautiful, but she must find true love and marry before her 20th birthday, or she will turn to stone at dawn, forever beautiful, but forever alone. The fire crackled in the silence that followed. Around their compound, they could hear the normal sounds of village evening, children playing, mothers calling them inside, the distant sound of drums from a celebration in another part of the village. But here, in their small circle of firelight, the weight of ancestral judgment pressed down upon them. 7 women in our family have turned to stone over the generations. Mama Folak said softly. We keep their statues in the sacred grove behind our compound. They serve as a reminder and a warning. The next morning, word spread through Sunshine Village faster than smoke from the morning cooking fires. Amara, daughter of Baba Olu, and Mama Folake, was officially seeking a husband. By tradition, this announcement meant that eligible young men and their families could formally present themselves as potential suitors. The village marketplace buzzed with excitement and speculation. Under the great shade tree at the market center, where traders displayed their goods on colorful woven mats, women gathered to discuss this momentous news. 6 months, said Mama Adunni, a plump woman who sold the finest palm oil in the region. That's not much time for proper courtship and marriage negotiations. But look at her, replied Iya Agba, the eldest woman in the village, her gray hair wrapped in a brilliant blue head tie. What man wouldn't want to marry such beauty? The real challenge will be choosing from all the suitors who will come. As if summoned by their words, Amara appeared at the market with her mother, carrying a large woven basket for their weekly shopping. She wore a wrapper of deep blue cloth with golden threads and a matching head tie that complemented her elaborate braids. Gold bangles caught the morning sunlight as she moved, and her smile was warm and genuine as she greeted the other women. But underneath her composed exterior, Amara felt like a prize goat being examined for purchase. Every man who looked at her now did so with calculation, weighing her beauty against the urgency of her situation. considering what bride price her family might accept given their desperation. At the yam seller's stall, a group of young men had gathered, pretending to examine the tubers while actually watching Amara from the corners of their eyes. I heard she must marry within 6 months or face some terrible fate, whispered Tunde, a tall young man whose father owned several farms. Curse or no curse, look at her, replied Code, a skilled blacksmith whose arms were thick with muscle from working the forge. A man would be lucky to have such a wife. But what kind of pressure is that? Said a third young man, Jomo, whose gentle voice marked him as someone who thought before he spoke. To know that someone is marrying you not for love, but to escape some family curse? As Amara and her mother moved through the market, making their purchases and exchanging pleasantries, the young woman became increasingly aware of the whispered conversations that followed in her wake. Some of the comments were admiring, others calculating, and a few were cruel. She's beautiful, yes, but what man wants a wife who comes with such dark family history? I heard her great-grandmother was a witch, who cursed her own bloodline out of spite. Maybe the family made up this curse story to pressure men into quick marriages with less bride price negotiation. That very afternoon, the first formal suitor arrived at their compound. Chief Emeka, a wealthy man in his 40s who already had 2 wives, came with an impressive entourage. Behind him walked 4 young men carrying gifts: live chickens, bags of rice, bolt of fine cloth, and a small cask of palm wine. "Baba Olu, my friend," Chief Emeka called out as he entered their compound, his voice booming with confidence. "I come to speak with you about your daughter." The chief was an imposing man, tall and broad-shouldered, with elaborate tribal markings on his cheeks and arms that spoke of his high status. His wrapper was made of the finest hand-woven cloth, dyed in rich indigo blue with intricate white patterns. Multiple strands of coral beads crossed his chest, and heavy gold bracelets adorned his wrists. Baba Olu welcomed him with proper ceremony, offering kola nuts and palm wine according to tradition. They sat on low stools under the baobab tree, while Mama Folake and Amara prepared refreshments and listened from the kitchen area. "I have heard that your daughter Amara is seeking a husband," Chief Emeka began, getting straight to the point, as was his way in business. "I am prepared to offer a substantial bride price: 20 goats, 50 bags of yam, gold jewelry for the mother, and a plot of fertile land beside the river." It was an impressive offer, more than most families could hope for. But Baba Olu hesitated. "Chief Emeka, you honor our family with such generous terms. But tell me, what draws you to seek my daughter's hand?" The chief smiled, but there was something calculating in his expression. "She is the most beautiful woman in this region. A man of my status deserves a wife who will bring honor to his household. With her beauty and my wealth, our children will be blessed with every advantage." From the kitchen, Amara felt her heart sink. There was no mention of affection, no interest in her thoughts or feelings, no recognition of her as anything more than a beautiful object to be acquired. As the afternoon wore on, more suitors arrived. Delo, a successful trader whose caravans traveled as far as the great cities of the north, brought gifts of exotic spices and fine leather goods. He was a handsome man in his 30s, well-spoken and worldly. "I can offer your daughter a life of travel and adventure," he told Baba Olu. "She would see wonders beyond this village, great cities with markets that stretch for miles, rivers so wide you cannot see the other shore, mountains that touch the clouds." But when Mama Folek asked if he planned to settle down and raise a family, Deli looked uncomfortable. "Perhaps eventually. For now, the trading life requires constant movement." The third suitor of the day was Sayun, the youngest son of a neighboring chief. He was close to Amara's age, pleasant-looking and well-educated. His family owned vast plantations and lived in a large compound with dozens of servants. I seek a wife who will be my partner in all things, Seun told the assembled family. My mother wishes to train your daughter in the management of a large household. She would want for nothing. And what of love? Amara finally asked, speaking directly to a suitor for the first time that day. What of companionship and mutual affection? Seun seemed surprised by the question. Love often grows between husband and wife over time. Respect and comfort are good foundations for such growth. It was not an unreasonable answer, but neither was it what Amara's heart longed to hear. As evening approached and the formal suitors departed, promising to return with their families for more detailed negotiations, one more visitor arrived at the compound. Unlike the others, he came alone, carrying no gifts, wearing simple but clean clothing. This was Kofi, a young man perhaps 22 years old, who worked as a healer's apprentice in the neighboring village of Unity Springs. He was not wealthy or high-born, but he had kind eyes and gentle hands that had comforted the sick and injured. His reputation as a gifted healer was growing, and it was said that he could sense illnesses that others missed and prepare medicines that worked when all else failed. Baba Olu, he said respectfully, bowing low as he entered the compound. I am Kofi, son of Bayo the healer. I come to ask permission to court your daughter Amara. Baba Olu looked at the young man with surprise. After a day of wealthy suitors with impressive entourages, this humble visitor seemed almost anticlimactic. Young man, do you understand my daughter's situation? The urgency of her need to marry? I do, sir. But I also understand that a marriage made in haste and desperation may bring more sorrow than the curse it seeks to avoid. Mama Folake appeared from the kitchen, studying the young healer with interest. What do you know of our family's curse? Kofi's expression grew serious. In my training with the healers, I have learned much about spiritual ailments and ancestral judgments. Your family's curse is known among those who deal with such matters. But I have also learned that curses rooted in the lack of love and compassion can sometimes be healed by the presence of genuine love and compassion. From where she sat grinding peppers for the evening meal, Amara found herself listening more intently than she had all day. There was something different about this young man, a sincerity that had been absent from the other suitors. What do you offer my daughter? Baba Olu asked. The other suitors have promised wealth, status, adventure, comfort. What can a healer's apprentice provide? Kofi's answer was immediate and heartfelt. I offer her my complete devotion, my respect for her mind and spirit as well as her beauty, and my solemn promise that I will spend my life trying to make her happy rather than simply grateful to have escaped her curse. For the first time that day, Amara smiled. Not the polite, practiced smile she had worn for the other suitors, but a genuine expression of interest and hope. I would like to speak with your daughter, if she is willing. Kofi continued, not to negotiate terms or discuss bride price, but to learn who she is beyond her beauty and her family's reputation. It was an unusual request. Typically, formal negotiations would be completed before a suitor spoke directly with the intended bride. But these were unusual circumstances. Baba Olu looked at his wife, who nodded slightly. Amara, he called, would you be willing to speak with this young man? As the sun set over Sunshine Village, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Amara and Kofi sat on a woven mat under the baobab tree, properly chaperoned by Mama Folake, who sat nearby mending clothes. Tell me about your work as a healer, Amara said, genuinely curious. Kofi's face lit up with passion for his calling. Every morning, I gather herbs in the forest, different plants for different ailments. My master has taught me to listen, not just to what patients say, but to what their bodies tell me. Sometimes the real illness is not what it appears to be on the surface. That must be a great responsibility, Amara observed. People's lives depending on your knowledge and skill. It is, but it's also a great gift. When you can ease someone's pain or cure their sickness, when you can bring hope to a family that had lost all hope, there's no feeling like it in the world. Amara found herself relaxing for the first time in days. With the other suitors, the conversation had been about what they could provide for her. With Kofi, they were talking about dreams, passions, and purposes. "What about you?" Kofi asked. "Beyond the weaving and household work that all women learn, what brings you joy?" The question surprised her. No one had ever asked her that before. I love storytelling. In the evenings, when the younger children gather around the fire, I tell them stories. Old tales from our ancestors, new stories I make up myself. I love seeing their faces change as the story unfolds, watching them learn lessons without realizing they're being taught. Stories are a kind of healing too, Kofi said thoughtfully. They can mend hearts and spirits, help people understand themselves and their world. As they talked, the sounds of the village settling into evening surrounded them. Children being called in for dinner, cooking fires being stirred to life, the first drum beats of the night's festivities from somewhere across the village. "Kofi," Amara said softly, "why did you really come here today?" A healer could marry anyone. A farmer's daughter, a trader's daughter, someone without this terrible pressure hanging over them. Kofi was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because when I saw you at the market, I didn't just see a beautiful woman facing a curse. I saw someone kind. I watched you help an old woman carry her heavy basket, saw you give coins to children who couldn't afford the sweets they wanted. I saw someone intelligent. You asked the cloth seller about the origins of his patterns, not just their price. And I saw someone sad. Despite your smiles, there was loneliness in your eyes." Amara felt tears gathering. For months, she had felt like a butterfly trapped in a jar, beautiful to look at, but slowly suffocating under the weight of everyone's expectations and fears. "I want to know that person," Kofi continued, "the woman behind the beauty and the curse. And if she's willing, I'd like her to know me too, not as a solution to her problems, but as someone who might become her friend, her partner, her choice." As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Amara felt something she hadn't experienced since learning of her deadline: genuine hope. But she also felt the weight of time pressing down upon her. 6 months seemed both too long and not nearly long enough. "There's something else you should know about the curse," she said quietly. "It doesn't just affect me. Anyone who marries into our family takes on the risk of losing their wife to stone. Are you prepared for that possibility?" Kofi reached out and gently touched her hand. The first time a man had touched her with tenderness rather than possession. "Amara, every day we live contains the possibility of loss, disease, accident, war. Any of these could take away someone we love. The curse is just another form of risk. But the possibility of losing love doesn't make love less worth having." As darkness fell over Sunshine Village and the compound's oil lamps were lit, Amara felt as if she were standing at the edge of a great river, preparing to either find safe passage to the other side or be swept away by forces beyond her control. But for the first time since learning of her deadline, she no longer felt like she was facing those waters alone. That night, as Amara lay on her sleeping mat staring at the thatched ceiling of her room, she thought about the day's events. 3 wealthy, established suitors who saw her as a prize to be won, and 1 humble healer who saw her as a person to be known. But from the darkness outside her window came a sound that made her blood run cold. The soft scraping of stone against stone, as if something heavy was being dragged across the ground. She rose quietly and peered through the window toward the sacred grove where the stone figures of her cursed ancestors stood in eternal silence. In the moonlight, She could see 7 pale shapes among the trees, and for a moment, she could have sworn she saw one of them move. A whisper carried on the night wind, so soft she couldn't be sure she had really heard it. "Choose quickly, daughter. Choose well. Time grows short, and the stones grow hungry." Amara pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a gasp of fear. Tomorrow would bring more suitors, more pressure, more impossible choices, and somewhere in the darkness, the curse waited with infinite patience for her 20th birthday to arrive. What would become of Amara now? With love's possibility finally within reach, would she have the courage to choose her heart over her family's safety? The ancestors alone knew what trials awaited in the months ahead,